2024 was a banger reading year for me. Although unfortunately, it wasn't until the second half of the year where I really started picking up in terms of the number of books I was reading, but not the quality. In this video, we're gonna go month by month, talking about each book that was my favorite during that month. Let's get into it. Now, starting in January, I only read 2 books, Morning Star and Jade Legacy. And to be honest, neither of them were particularly my favorite and don't crack the top 10 books this year. But I think I liked Morning Star more, maybe because I'm just an action head, right? That's probably it. I liked the Greenbone Saga, but for some reason, it just didn't entertain me enough a lot of the time. And I found myself a little bit bored. I got all of the books from the library and I had to return Jade War before I finished it because I just couldn't bring myself to read it. But I finished it via audiobook and that made it easier for me to consume the rest of the series. But as for Morning Star, like I said, I'm just an action head. This gave such masculine testosterone vibes. And I'm a guy, what can I say, dude? Red Rising just hits. If you're a fella and you have high testosterone or you have low testosterone and want some more testosterone, just go read Red Rising. Just gotta do it. Bruh. All right, in February, I read the entire Gentleman Bastard series, which means my favorite book of that month was The Lies of Locke Lamora. Thieving in a fantasy world. Guys, can it get better than that? Yes, but shut up. Don't worry about it. This shit was so peak, boys. I cannot recommend this enough. Locke and John, just such a goated characters. There's a crazy action scene in this with John. Whew, knocked my socks off, guys. You guys need to read this. If you do, I recommend implementing it with an audiobook as well. It's kind of hard to get into at first, but if you have the audiobook going, it makes it easier to focus. And then eventually you kind of just get into it. I really only used the audiobook for the first one, and the other two, I feel like I was used to the way this author, Scott Lynch, writes, and it was easier for me to just go with my eyes only. But the audiobook is really good too, so that's also a good reason to do it. You might find some very lengthy descriptions of places or things that characters are looking at. Just be aware of that. It was kind of annoying at first, but eventually I just got super used to it, and then it wasn't a big deal anymore. Don't let that deter you from this amazing story. Just read it. It's so good. Hello, I hope you're enjoying the video. Don't scroll away. Don't scroll away. Don't scroll away. Wait. If you guys want to support, make sure you like, subscribe, follow me on all my socials, Twitch. I'm going to be streaming there more, Twitter, Threads, literally everything. They're all in a Linktree, and I'm pretty sure they're also all in their own single links in the description, so you don't have to go to Linktree if you don't want to. If you want to monetarily support me, please consider checking out my sponsor down below. Sponsor's a website that lets you separate multiple donation goals. I think I only have one right now, but that might change by the time you see this video. So if you want to support me and help me out and make these videos here and then make other content on my main channel, please consider just checking that out. If not, no worries, not a big deal. If you do, thank you so much. Back to the video. Now, my favorite book of March is Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. This is the sequel book to Kings of the Wyld. This book is very D&D like. It's about a party of old adventurers or whatever they're called who was really famous back in the day, and they are now really old and separated. They're all living their best lives, but the party leader, his daughter gets stuck in a city during a siege, and so he gets the boys back together to go and rescue the daughter. So they're all a bunch of old men getting the gang back together. It's pretty lit. So the second book, Bloody Rose, follows the daughter who was behind that wall some years later. So I guess, spoiler. And it's about her party, her new very famous party of adventurers. The characters I think are just way more complex. The dynamics between each of them are also more interesting than the original book. But I think this book is really where Nicholas Eames steps up in the quality of his characters. Worth it. It's really good. Now, the best book I read in April was Ruin by John Gwynne. This is book 3 in the Faithful and the Fallen series. You can see I have the other books right there. I'm gonna turn that light on, actually. Maybe it'll light it up better. Maybe a little bit, not too much. The first book is called Malice, right there. I don't feel like grabbing it, so I'll just throw a mouse on the screen. And it's kind of a little bit more towards your classic fantasy, prophecy, hero, chosen one sort of thing. For some reason, these are in a haze. When I was reading these, I was super addicted to them. Now I'm struggling to remember what happened in each specific book, but all I know is that this character in this book, his name is Macwin. Just read this book purely because I'm saying Macwin's a hoss, okay? Just trust me and those words and just read it, okay? That's all you need to know. Macwin's an absolute hoss. All right, my favorite book of May was The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. This is book 3 in the first Law trilogy. This trilogy has so much aura. Like, the characters are just the pure absolute definition of morally gray. They're so fire. Sandan Galacta, one of the best characters probably ever written. He's like evil, but not. Joe Abercrombie has some amazing character work, and it's showing how good people can do bad things, bad people can do good things, bad people can change, good people can change. You're interested in reading a book about a guy with 9 fingers, another guy who's basically a giant loser, and a cripple who's in excruciating pain every single day but still manages to pull off some crazy ass shit. Check out the first Law trilogy. And then the last Argument of Kings, perfect way to finish in a grim dark fashion. How do I even explain the ending of that book? It just leaves you, I wouldn't say satisfied, but you end up saying, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's the only way things probably could have turned out. Read it.
It's me.
All right, now my favorite book of June is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. I loved this book, which really made me interested in M.L. Wong. I actually just finished Blood Over Brighthaven, which just recently came out. I think last year, technically last year. Oh, so we're saying that now? Yeah. This book turned M.L. Wong into an auto-buy author for me. I'll buy whatever she writes. That was incredible. Anyways, we're not talking about that. I'm talking about The Sword of Kaigen. This is the only standalone book that's ever made me cry. And she did that halfway in. If I cry in a book, it's because I'm attached to the characters, or I've been attached to them for such a long time, and something happens and I'm just devastated. I don't know how, but this book just attaches you to everybody in the first 100 pages. It's insane. I've never experienced this before, and it was just crazy. M.L. Wong is a crazy talented author. You guys need to read this book. You will cry. Great action sequences, great magic system, and very interesting world building, and very interesting themes on domestic abuse and misogyny and patriarchy. You guys gotta check this out. All right, now my next best read in July, it was actually a tie between Dark Age and Lightbringer in Red Rising. My hot take is that I always just group these two books together. I like them the same. I cannot separate them. If I really had to choose, really had to choose, maybe Dark Age would be just a little bit better. They're basically the same to me. Just Pierce Brown does it again. Pure testosterone. What can I say, boys? Absolute bangers. Lightbringer was absolutely soul crushing at the end. Just read Red Rising, guys, especially if you're a fella. These two books are what moved Red Rising from me just being yeah, I mean, this is okay. It's good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't get the hype. These two books maybe get the hype. I love Red Rising now. It is now my top 10 purely because of these last two books. All right, now in August, my favorite book that I read, or I listened to it, was The Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Highly recommend. An amazing dual POV sci-fi series. One of the POVs is generations of intelligent alien spiders, and then the other POV is of a language historian who is on this ship of humans, and they're trying to find a new place to call home because Earth is basically just sucks. It destroyed itself and it's not livable anymore. It is a little stressful with the humans. A lot of infighting, but the spiders, I'm telling you guys, the intelligent spiders are just insane, guys. So good. Please check out The Children of Time. Now for September, we have another Joe Abercrombie book. It's called Best Served Cold, and it's about a mercenary who is doing this work for a duke. This work has made her very famous, and the people love her, which the duke has a problem with. So he betrays her by throwing her off a cliff. So she's all torn up, crazy scars everywhere. She broke all her bones. He vows to get revenge. It is a revenge story, and it's being turned into a movie with the main character being played by Rebecca Ferguson. And I was like, oh my god, I can literally see no other actor playing her. I knew that before reading the book. So as I was reading, the main character in my mind was just always Rebecca Ferguson. If you don't know who Rebecca Ferguson is, she played Paul Atreides' mother in Dune. It was so good, so brutal. This really shows the grim darkness of Joe Abercrombie to a level that I don't think was actually seen in the first Law trilogy. In this book, you kind of see how characters' mental and morals just start degrading over time due to the situations they're putting themselves in, or other people have put themselves in. Highly recommend. Super banger. I'm in love with Rebecca Ferguson, so that's probably adding some points to it maybe. Now October was my Stormlight Archive reread month. The Way of Kings. I love The Way of Kings. This is my favorite book of all time, but it also isn't. Rhythm of War more, but this is still also my favorite book. There's two realities existing at once. I'm not a consistent person. If you're watching this video, you've probably heard of the Stormlight Archive before. It's one of those books where you just don't even know how to explain it, to be honest. You guys just have to read it. You just have to read it and find out. This is a life-changing experience. If you're suffering from major depressive disorder, clinical depression, or, you know, another mental disorder, read this book. This entire series is like therapy in fiction. Crazy world building, crazy magic, very complex characters that you just get super emotionally attached to. Just check it out, guys. I swear to God. Now for November, this month, I had my favorite book I read all year, and this book is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This book is like a sci-fi whodunit mystery with lesbian necromancers and down bad main character. Swords, corn mags, raising bones and skeletons from the ground. It's like brain rot, but at the same time, you can tell the author reads the dictionary for fun. So this is another book that's just existing in like two separate realities at one time and merging them together. It's brain rot, but it's also brain nourishment at the same time. Guys, you have to read this book. I swear to God, please. Now for December, I want to say this probably isn't objectively the best book I've read, but subjectively, and been reading subjective, my favorite book in December was Wind and Truth. I have to set this thing down because it's like really big, like slipping. I think that if I did not have such a strong emotional attachment to the Stormlight Archive, I would have picked a different book. No, I wouldn't. I went through all the other books in my head and they're all amazing, but I still think this one actually might be like objectively better and subjectively better. Don't get mad at me for saying that. In my subjective opinion, okay? I think it's objectively better. I know I should have established this a while ago, but it's late at night, so I'm talking quietly. I just love the Stormlight Archive so much. We get to see the climaxes of many characters' arcs, and it was just very emotionally impactful, and I loved where the characters ended up emotionally, mentally. Maybe not plot-wise. You know, the plot-wise, it's a little bit more stressful. I don't hate it, but, you know, it's the end of Act 1, right? And there's a whole nother act left. At the end of the day, as much as I love Brandon Sanderson's world building and magic systems, when we're talking about the Stormlight Archive, for me, it's the characters. The characters I care so much about. And yeah, those are my favorite books from each month. I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know if you can relate to any of these books, and let me know what your favorite books of each month were.